I'm Jamie.
And I'm Lo, and welcome to another episode of Try Saying That Out Loud, a podcast where we talk about weird, hilarious, and only sometimes consequential things.
It's our lives and our truths, unscripted and uncensored.
Sorry, kids. There's some swearing up in here.
We did it.
We crushed it.
Although,
do we feel like this was like a little bit of a aspirational intro? Because I feel like shit's changed, and we actually talk about pretty consequential things. So maybe we should change that. Yeah, that's true.
But it says sometimes, and we do it sometimes.
But only sometimes.
Oh.
It's been pretty consistent. I mean, come on. Yeah. We give ourselves a little bit of credit.
We do. We do a good job.
We're talking about important shit.
Pats on back.
Most of the time.
What I wanted to tell you, but I wanted to make sure the record was on, is I was watching TikTok, as I do, and there was a TikTok of this girl who was showing something, and she was like clearly like in her late teens, early 20s, and she was showing something she got from Target in the Wild Fable section, which is my favorite section of Target.
What's a Wild Fable section?
It's like, it's one of their, Target has like a bunch of brands. Like, you know how they only used to have like Massimo or whatever?
Okay, be fair to me. I had only City Target for the last like 6 years.
What does that mean?
Have you ever been inside like a true City Target? Like, imagine going to Target in like New York.
I mean, ours is ours isn't like a structure. It's not like a standalone. So is that considered City Target?
I guess. I don't know. I guess I associate City Target with like very limited brands. Like, often you don't have a grocery section.
Oh, so mine is like, big. It has a grocery section.
Right. Like, if it doesn't have a grocery section, I feel like you're likely in a City Target where inventory, you know, the section, it's so much smaller and the inventory is weird.
Well, so like in the last few years, Target has come out with like a ton of like their own in-store brands, and I'm like really here for it. Like, so one is Wild Fable, and I don't even really know how to describe the style, but it's like cool. That's all like. That's
is it clothing?
Yeah. All of these are clothing.
Okay.
They have like a new day. They have universal thread, and they all like sort of have like a different vibe to them.
Whoa.
It's like, I like it. I'm into it. Anyway, so I have a bunch of my original tie-dye stuff before it was cool was from Wild Fable.
Caveat. Jamie did it before it was cool.
I mean, I wore it in Asia before quarantine. You have the photo.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'll give you credit.
Anyway, so she like pulls out this thing. And she goes, guys, I got this from the Wild Fable section in Target, and it's one of those fucking circular headbands that has those teeth. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you like, it like combs into.
Oh, fuck.
And she's like showing it like it's this like new.
Like the butterfly clip era.
Correct. Exact same thing. And was like, guys, look at this like headband. And like, it's the circle headband with the teeth that comes into your hair. I was like, welcome home.
The front door.
Welcome home. Yeah.
Is this how our parents felt when like bell bottoms came back 100%. And they were like, oh yeah, they told us that was bullshit, or like mom jeans. They're like so validated.
Yeah, that's 100% what's happening. And I mean, it was really not, I mean, I say that it wasn't that long ago, but like it was the 90s were 30
No, the best about
ago.
those is that they kind of gave you a natural lift.
Right.
To like behind, like, but sometimes they hurt my head.
They hurt my head all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Ooh, that is so funny. So wait, she's like early 20s, you said?
Or like late teens, yeah. Like a baby Gen Zer, yeah. I know. Every time I hear Gen Zers like say all these things about like what makes millennials old, I'm like, I'm all of those things. Like apparently the laugh cry emoji is out. Anytime they see someone use the laugh cry emoji, they like know you're a millennial.
Really? See, I never use that emoji just because it annoys me.
Oh, well, Gen Z.
I'm like, bitch, you're not laughing that hard at whatever I send you. Like,
also, you would be, I'm in also, but side part's not a thing, says Gen Z. Middle part is the thing, which I've always been middle part. So like,
I one time tried to do a side bang and it was
I also
horrendous.
One time tried to do it. Correct. I also did.
It was horrendous. I also one time was allowed to get real bangs. Like like a situation from normal people status. It was not my finest, and I've been with my hairstylist for over a decade now, and she let me do it, and she let me double down and like get thicker. But I literally look at her every time, and I'm like, I trust you implicitly, except when you gave me fucking bangs and you let me do that to myself.
And it was bad.
Well, I loved it in the moment, but now I look back on pictures and I'm like,
and you're like, I actually don't love it now.
Yeah, the bang was not my finest.
I really think the only time bangs are like spot on is if you have a big forehead because you have the room to like let them be.
You also just kind of have to be chic as fuck.
Yeah, that's true. But
Like
also
the
like that you like in not quarantine, like that was you. So like that's like not a problem in that area. I think it's
I
really
don't
like
know. Also, I think it's hair type. I don't know. Somehow they just like like grease curtains. Like,
oh yeah,
you know?
no.
Oh.
I had them when I was younger and like growing them out was such a process, but I've never looked back.
I
It
never looked
was
back. I was like, the second these bad boys grow, it's like I thank God I kind of blacked out between the period of like
how
when they
old
were
were
like
you?
normal and I mean this was I was out of college. So
Oh,
it was
okay.
like when Alex and I first started dating. It's like 2012, 2013.
So like yeah, you weren't like a child.
I
Like
was not a child. I was a grown ass woman making
grown
decisions
woman.
about bangs that I should have not been allowed to make. Let me just tell you.
Yeah. I got my hair done today and
Yeah,
I
it looks good.
like it I mean it's basically the same color it was last time except a little bit of my ends are cut
It looks a little
because
more golden to me.
yeah, well but so Ben's it's supposed to because like
Yeah, it looks good.
my platinum is growing out and being cut. Like that's just like how
Yeah,
that's going.
yeah.
And I like he knew I went to get my hair done and then like didn't say anything, which like is par for the course. And then I was in the kitchen and he like finally like realized and saw it and he was like, "Oh, hair looks good. It's brown." I was like, "It's not brown. It's not
No,
brown."
it was more brown last time, I thought.
I'll show you a picture. Like I mean it literally more or less looks the same with like maybe it might be like a hint darker, but like
Right.
it's
I love that
basically
he
the
like
same.
considers that brown. I'm like, what do you consider my hair
Well,
poop?
to be clear, I mean, I was coming home with like platinum snow, like Daenerys Targaryen hair every day or every
Mother
time.
of dragons. Mother of
Right. So
motherfucking
like,
dragons.
um,
So transitioning to our try saying that out loud moments, we texted literally 2 days ago, and I was like,
uh-huh.
I don't think I have one.
We're gonna do this every time now. I think that's what's
I was
gonna
like,
happen.
I don't think I have one, and I just would rather, maybe it's me not being self aware, and then I realized, yep, definitely have one. Um,
We're always
so
gonna have one, and we're always gonna say we don't have one. That's what's gonna happen. I think.
right, and here's also the other thing. I didn't force myself to have one.
Right.
I just acknowledged to you that like maybe this was the time to shorten episode, maybe we
Right. This is
alternate. We
we can,
talked about that depending on who has one and how deep we want to go. And I had told you, I said, but I swear I remember having a thought and I'm just having brain fog. I
and I
don't
can't
remember what I
remember.
was doing and I can't remember. And then it came to me. So it was organic. How to introduce this particular, try saying that out loud. So all our friends are going to laugh at this. I'm a horse girl, but not an annoying one.
It's my fucking favorite thing. The way I'm an airport creature. I know you're not a horse girl creature, but like it makes
Right.
me laugh to think of you as one.
Right. Like you imagine me frolicking around
Correct. It just makes
during
me
recess with my
right. Horse
unicorn
girl.
backpack or something.
Like it just makes me like I feel like horse girls like not non like waspy horse girls, like non-chic horse girls are like a separate breed. Like
1000%.
like there's two kinds
Yeah.
and like I imagine you as the second kind and I know you're not but it makes me happy to do
No.
that.
Well, so that kind of is a broader. No, honestly, you're kind of speaking to what my moment is. So Alex and I moved from San Francisco. We lived there for 5.5 years. It was difficult to ride. Barns were really far away. Would have
Like
to go like
basically
45
impossible.
minutes out of my way, 45 minutes there and back. It's by the time you have a truncated life, it just doesn't make sense. So when we moved up north and I was a little bit more, a little closer to some of these things. And I don't know, I think I just started to get the feeling that I feel like a lot of people probably have, and I don't have children, but I especially imagine it happens when you have children, where you realize that you don't really have anything that's literally only for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, there are things, obviously, like we read a lot. There are things that I do to occupy my time that are purely for me. And I'm a huge self-care advocate. I like take care of myself to the, I really do. But emotionally, I was starting to get a little, especially probably in quarantine. I was, looking at Alex going golfing and doing things outside that he could still do, even though we were in lockdown.
Right.
So when we moved up north, I told him, I said, I feel like this is my moment. I want to do it for myself. You spend all this money golfing all the time. It's very expensive to golf, as you know.
Uh-huh.
And I just, I want to get back to have that part of my life back. I just feel like a part of myself is missing. I just want to get back to it. Because I also love animals. You know me and the farm porn.
The farm porn. I do know.
Let me tell you about the documentary I watched where I was fucking sobbing. I can tell you about that later. But so really I was like, I just, I don't know, when you grow up with it, it feels like something's missing when you're not doing it anymore.
Right.
So I found a barn. My whole thing was I want to find a trainer that I really like. My ultimate goal is I want to own again.
I was just going to say, are you going to get one?
Yes. That's my ultimate goal. But I've been out of the game for so long. And
for now, you just want to ride.
Yeah, I want to ride. I want to find a trainer that I vibe with. Every other time I've ridden, it's been, even at the adult level, like competitive, where people are
really
legit going to shows. And I'm like,
As a grown
adult, like older than me. And I'm like, I have zero desire to get in a show ring. Not going to happen. Never did. I mean, I grew up, and that's the other thing about this story is Alex is, seeing it, he wasn't exposed to the horse world prior to me. So he's seeing it as, it's a very hoity-toity thing now, to be honest. Right. Like I grew up, I took riding lessons, but my memory of riding is I knew how to walk and then I knew how to ride, and that was it. I don't have a memory of being really trained. I rode a bunch of different horses. Sometimes I was riding bareback. It was
right.
Not,
it was not like, right. It was not like a thing.
It was not what you, like how you mentioned, like the waspy horse riding thing. Like that was not it probably was happening. It just wasn't my reality. So Alex is kind of, laughing at me, and we're talking about it and, the financial aspect of it. And, realistically, because I'm evaluating these trainers and also evaluating the barns, because you want to know how much does board cost? What is, everything's included. What kind of hay do you use? Those types of things. So we're talking about costs, and he started to kind of be like, oh, that's a lot of money. And it fucking is, let me tell you. It is.
It's a live animal.
It's a shit ton. It is a live animal. I mean, I think he thought it was going to be way worse than it is. But I mean, you never know. It's like having a dog. You're like, well, vet expense, like emergency.
I can't even tell you how much money we spent on Wilson this month. So he's old. Like you just like live spend animal. Money on, right.
And Alex is like, you're not going to go all the time. And I also, this is also to say, I would go every day
to
my horse. No, I did when I was growing up.
You did?
I did. Basically every day. Maybe I missed like one day a week because of some other soccer practice, whatever it was. But we would go every day. And so, but realistically, let's be honest, like I have school, I have all these other things. So I'm not probably going to go every day. So there are expenses associated with, making sure your horse gets turned out or exercised or whatever it is.
Right.
Anyway, that's a large digression. The main point of this is we start talking about costs. And I'm telling Alex, I'm trying to explain to him that me getting back into riding is actually me returning to kind of a simpler time in my life, which from a financial perspective, it is not at all.
The opposite.
It's the opposite. And maybe I wasn't exposed. It was probably half the cost as it was when I had my horse.
Right. I mean, everything's so much expensive.
It's so much more expensive. And I also probably wasn't as exposed. But anyway, so we're talking about that. And I just kind of had this moment of, I was trying, and he gets it now because I was able to articulate myself. But I was like, look, that literally was the simplest time of my life. I got outside. I was away from, we didn't really have, we did kind of towards the end, but I was truly disconnected.
Right.
I was in nature. I was with animals. I was learning something new, applying myself. I literally, as a child, I will say, That was like my first entrepreneurial adventure. Is I took care of people and rode people's horses when they were on vacation, and so I like built a business. It was like a whole part of my life that I like. That piece I just want back in my life,
right?
But it's expensive as hell. And then the secondary part of that whole conversation about the irony of something being such a simple part of my life, but financially being so complicated and not at all simple. And it's such a privileged position to be in.
To be like, I'm going back to simpler times, and simpler times cost twice as much.
Yeah. So it was interesting to have that, but then also the realization, and it's sad also to think because horses are used often in therapy to like help children through autism.
I've heard it's great.
All sorts of, very traumas, PTSD, like all sorts of things. And the acknowledgement that the realization for me that I was lucky. I mean, we were very middle class, like childhood for me. So but I still had access. The fact that like it is like such a barrier to having access to those types of things, the cost of riding and doing that, and how, it's like humbling. And I'm so lucky to be like able to be like, yeah, I'm going to ride again and I'm going to own a horse. Cause it's like my mom literally sent me, I was like, do not send this to Alex. She sent me a TikTok of this woman who's just like filming her horse. And she's in her very charming British accent. She's like, someone the other day asked me, what does it cost to own a horse? And I said, it makes more sense for me to support 12 crackheads. And it's true.
Oh, can you do one segment every episode in a British accent? I would appreciate that from now on. Thank you very much.
Is it delicious? Is it great?
It's good. I am incapable of doing an accent. Ben said every time I like, not even an accent, but like if I'm mocking somebody or like imitating him or my parents or someone on the phone.
You're bad at imitations.
I'm really bad. And he said everyone's voice is the same. So like if I'm mocking Ben, if I'm mocking myself, if I'm mocking my sister, whoever, everyone's voice is the same. And it's a voice that I occasionally use in real life on the phone. He was like, your imitation voice is your phone voice. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Oh my, now I want to hear it, but I don't want to put you on the spot. It has to come naturally.
It has to come naturally. You'll hear it.
So that was basically it's like I'm saying I'm returning to simpler times, but it's adding a layer of vacation's going to be more complicated. Everything's going to be more complicated.
Right.
The thing Alex and I never fucking leave. Yes, you have to pay some. There's all sorts of things. I mean, well, whatever. And then the other side of it being, if I was a child, if I was having my childhood in 2021, I would have not maybe had access to something like that. And how would my life have been different? And I don't know. There is a woman who, she's actually a Black woman who owns a barn in like Oakland, so East Bay, east of San Francisco. And I've donated a handful of times because her goal is to bring riding and lessons and horses to underrepresented and underserved communities. That's so amazing. Now that I'm getting kind of back into it, I'm also trying to think from that lens of, okay, well, what can I do from this position now? Kind of re-entering this community of people. What can I do
incredible.
To pull it forward? But I don't know. I mean, any horse I get is probably not going to be a horse that like an underserved kid can ride. So it's I'm just trying to figure it out. But it's definitely a humbling situation for me to be like, I'm returning to simpler times, but really, no.
I feel you. I'm partially employed. I mean, that's ending very soon, but I'm acting as if we are working with a 2-salary income. Like I'm pretending like Ben's like, we're not, heads up. Like you are ending your employment very soon. So we're going to be back to 1 salary. Yeah, but that's not to say,
I mean, come on.
So I very much understand that. I also initially thought I wasn't going to have a try saying that out loud moment. I get like, it's never going to be that way. It's just never going to be that way. I don't think.
Knock on wood. I mean.
Right. So, and this one, like I like had, and like, it was something that I saw online and I screenshotted it and then forgot about it. And I was looking through my phone yesterday and I was like, oh, hello. Like I needed to talk about
the power of the screenshot. Yikes.
Yeah. So, and it's not even it's interesting that the only reason I even thought about it was because it was presented to me in this way. Like
Yeah.
I knew about it and like I had like it had anyway, I'm just gonna say it. So I follow a Black bookstagrammer who was doing a Q&A, and one of the questions that she was asked was, if you could live in any other country, where would you live? And I was like, oh, I want to know her answer.
Yeah. I feel like that's
And
so fun to know for anyone. I feel like it.
right. And so her answer was, the idea of living anywhere other than North America really intimidates me. And that surprised me. And I was like, that like, and there's some people that just like don't like to travel, right? Like that's like not their thing. But the way it like read, it was like a written answer. And the way it read, and it continued, but it basically read it like, I don't know which countries are friendly enough to Black people for me to go live there. And I had read stuff about that before. I don't know if you follow Glow's graphics.
Yes.
Yeah. So she, I'm pretty sure it was her, had posted like a while back, like a slideshow of Instagram posts about which countries are the friendliest to Black people. It literally never fucking occurred to me that that's something that they have to be cognizant of when they're taking a vacation. It's like, oh, is this a Black friendly country? Like it just never.
That's a vacation.
A vacation.
A temporary stay somewhere.
Right. Like it just never even crossed my mind that like they have to think about like, is this a country where they can walk around like and be relaxed and not worry about like overt racism? Like
and I am so obviously my eyes have been opened, but I probably prior to last year would have thought that the US was
a great
most
place.
No,
Right.
was the most. You're like, I feel I would have been like, oh, well, you go to Paris and so many interracial couples and everyone love is love and blah, blah, blah. And I would have thought, but that's probably totally ignorant too.
I can't remember. I'll like try and find the list and we can talk about it the next episode. But that was the vibe that I was getting. And I'm like, I could have interpreted it wrong. But even still, I know that it's a thing that when Black people are traveling, they have to pay attention to what country they're traveling in and like essentially like set their mind frame to like, okay, this country is extremely racist or this country like is welcoming and XYZ. And like there are very few countries that white people have to do that for, if any.
Any? I was just going to say which ones.
Yeah, if any. So like it just like jarred me because I was like, oh, what would my answer be? Where would I want to live? And like
world is my oyster.
Correct. Like I can pick anywhere. And the fact that this was like, yeah, it's really intimidating, the thought of living somewhere other than North America. And like, to be clear, it's not fucking great here either. But it's like,
I was just going to say, where does America land on that list? Like if you were to ask someone from abroad
that doesn't live here, right?
Yeah, that same question, where would America land?
Low.
I mean,
fucking low.
Well, there's so many different also parts, I guess. Sometimes right. I truly feel like the U.S. is 1,000% divided almost in half. So like you could go to like this part of that and it's fine.
Right. You can be in California, New York, and you're getting literally a 100% different experience than if you go to Texas. Like it's not the same country.
No.
So, yeah, I thought that was like such a like smack in the face that I was like, oh, what country?
And then I know. And like, meanwhile, we're like, I'm, COVID, vaccines, the end is near. I'm feeling really positive.
Yep.
About where the fuck am I gonna go when this
I know.
is
Where
over?
Are we traveling next?
Where am I going? And my friend and I were like, let's just go to Paris. And now you're saying this, and I'm like, So not only privileged to be able to travel after this, because people are having to like recover their lives from this economic downturn that has happened, but also like, oh yeah, I don't really need to think about that. I can just kind of pack my bags and
just go,
basically go wherever. Yeah, wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah, and I think if I can find this graphic that I had seen like a while back, I like would love to like delve into it next week just a little bit further, just because it's such a like. I remember reading the list of countries and being somewhat surprised, like what they were and like what was the most welcoming. Like it wasn't
and like. And what is defining this too? I mean,
Right. I think she listed like what it meant and like how.
Got it. Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about it if you can find it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing because until I had seen that, and I think this was like right when I had started following her, like, mid 2020. And for anyone that doesn't, she's incredible. Glow's Graphics. She has like that's on Instagram. She has like, racism courses or anti-racism courses. And if you're also unrelated to that, if you're like trying to, be an entrepreneur or like kind of follow in the travel and just like motivational blogger lifestyle that she has, like she has incredible resources on that. She's just incredibly talented.
All right. Well, those are really good. Try saying that out loud.
They were good. I'm proud of us. Ones. Not that we deserve pats on the back for that.
And fuck, no one's emailing us still. So,
well, that's not true.
Well, someone emailed, but not their try saying that out loud.
Yeah, no one's emailed the try saying that out loud moment, but you did get an email and you got some questions for wellness topics. So I'm excited for you to dive in.
Do you want to transition into that?
Yeah. Tell me.
I did approach it a little bit differently this time, and I'm going to answer 2 questions I got. And I think I'm going to call this segment Low, I Want to Know.
Love it.
So I rephrased the questions in that
vein.
So when you, in the future, just know that if you submit a question, that's how it's going to go. And the first one is relevant because it is a little bit of a piggyback on what I talked about last week or last episode.
Yeah.
Not last week, but it feels like last week.
It feels like last week.
I guess it was last week. It literally was last week.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
It released. But 2 weeks. Anyway, let's just not go there. Anyway, when I talked about the gut-brain axis and the connection and vagus nerve and all that fun stuff. So this is a gut health follow-up question. Lo, I want to know, how do I know if I have problems with my gut and what do I do if I have issues? So here's my answer. If you're asking, you might have an issue. The most important thing I would say about any sort of health issue, and I've told Jamie this so many times, is just listen to your body. So if you are thinking,
I might have one.
Something's wrong with, even if it's this tiniest, like they're a little bloated, anything, you probably have some sort of issue. Obviously, there are gradients and gradations of how severe your issues are. So don't hit the panic button. My perspective is that almost everyone in the United States has some sort of gut issue.
For sure.
And that's not...
Unless you're like the healthiest human alive, right? Like an elite athlete.
Well, even then, the way our food is grown, our soil quality, all of those things can bring bad shit into your body. And
right. You can be the healthiest eater and it won't matter.
Right. So I guess that was incorrect to say that it was a total follow-up from 2 weeks ago because it's not necessarily talking about emotion, but general gut. So there are some signs that your gut is unhappy. So I'll, go through a few of them, not in incredible detail, but the obvious ones are you've been diagnosed with something like IBS or IBD, which is irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease. I don't very closely understand the nuances between the two, but IBS is kind of the more prominent one. Or you have localized reactions, like you're getting bloating, gas, nausea, diarrhea, anything kind of like literally
an acute symptom.
Yes. Anything where you're like, my gut literally hurts. Then there are other things like, are you sensitive to a really wide variety of foods? Like it's hard to pinpoint exactly what you're sensitive to. You kind of just start to feel ill randomly. And this can be healthy foods. So I used to get so gassy, like rancid, smelly gas when I had broccoli.
Really?
Uh-huh. So people are like, oh, but it's a healthy food. Why can't I eat that? That's not because the food is bad for you. It's because of the way your gut bacteria. No, I'm not. I've healed my gut and I haven't had no issues now.
Oh, interesting.
So it's more about, kind of the status of your gut at the point that you're eating that and noticing those. So if you have kind of, if any sort of if you're also one of those people that have gotten allergy tests and you have like 5,000 food allergies, there's probably something else going on. Because basically what happens is in most of the time, your gut lining gets damaged or leaky. Leaky gut is actually a diagnosis. So it gets damaged and things start getting past your gut barrier that shouldn't. And so then your body is like jumping into overdrive. So that's kind of Another way you can know potentially if you have gut issues, which I know you will appreciate, is you have skin issues like eczema or rosacea.
Uh-huh.
So for me, my skin has always been the first sign I know something's wrong. If I look a little flushed or my rosacea, or I get like my, chicken skin starts happening, I'm like, ooh, gut, liver, all of that's kind of interconnected. So that can be another sign that maybe something's wrong with your gut, or you're eating something that is, that can also be related to a food allergy if you haven't identified that. But gut generally involved in that. You have been diagnosed or have an autoimmune disorder or other chronic illness, including emotionally, like depression or anxiety. So any sort of chronic, even arthritis, where like that has nothing to do with the gut. Everything kind of stems largely from the gut. I would say most autoimmune disorders, because most autoimmune, so in order for something to cause an autoimmune reaction, I mean, sometimes it's genetic, but a lot of the times, even if you have the gene, your body, something has to change in your body where that gene gets turned on. So for me, I have a history of Hashimoto's in my family, but I didn't have Hashimoto's just because of the gene. I had Hashimoto's because I developed leaky gut from being on the birth control pill for so long. And pathogens started to get into my bloodstream, and my body created an immune response in response to those pathogens. So, and my body, because of my genetic predisposition, Hashimoto's was kind of what started to happen. So it's, obviously very broad swaths, but a lot of autoimmune disease and a lot of chronic illness starts in the gut. I actually think, and the more I listen to doctors speak about this, I think that in the coming years, there are going to be so many more studies about how the gut is affecting all of these illnesses that the world deals with.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah. Being constantly on antibiotics. So antibiotics are great for very specific things, but they wipe out all of the bacteria in your gut, even the good guys. And what happens is if you're on them consistently, you're just wiping out and not replenishing. And so if you're wiping them out and then not really doing anything to help replenish them, or eating bad foods, that can just make bad bacteria continue to proliferate, and you'll continue to have gut issues. So when you're on antibiotics, that's why I think some doctors, and I'm happy for this, are starting to tell people to start taking probiotics, or be aware.
Or are more cautious about prescribing antibiotics. I've seen that too. Like when I was sicker last year, like even in urgent care, which is like pretty much like hands out antibiotics like candy, was like, let's like do a very short course of antibiotics.
See what happens.
Because they don't want you to be on them for that long.
Yeah, it really does. It like changes. It totally wipes everything out. I mean, it's akin to, I tell people about mouthwash all the time because I learned about it kind of recently. But mouthwash, when they're like, kills 99.9% of germs, it also kills the good shit in your mouth that you need for digestion. So
really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a whole thing. So anyway, so similar idea, like, antibiotics helping you in some ways, but you're going to have to, like, I have a friend who, he's dealing with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, SIBO, probably seen it, and which is brutal, but he's got to be on antibiotics to like clear his bad bacteria out. But it's going to be he's going to have to eat so clean, so healthy to help build that good bacteria back up. Because you want that variety in your gut.
Right.
Another one that is especially pertinent to my situation is hormonal imbalances.
Oh my fucking
so
God,
a lot of, and here's the thing I have to say, fucking advocate for yourself. If you're like, my hormone, like something is wrong. A lot of doctors will be like, oh, it's just, women deal with it, especially women around your cycle and your period. If there's just continue to advocate for yourself as much as possible, because hormonal imbalances, like a lot of your hormones and a lot of that process starts in your gut.
So when you say advocate, you mean like go get a panel?
Yeah. And if your doctor's not listening to you, find a new fucking doctor that is going to listen to you. And, if you ever need resources, people can email me because I'm happy. I've literally gone to doctors and been like, but this study says, quite literally.
Right.
It's a pain in the ass. And it's a shame. Honestly, it makes me so mad that women especially have to do that. Like, we have to take charge of our own healthcare, but that's just the state. And it's, I don't want to hate on doctors. It's not really their fault. It's just our medical system is based on diagnosing disease and not finding the root of what's going on. They're like, okay, right. I want to, like in med school, I was listening to a doctor on his podcast, and he was reflecting on med school being he was like, oh yeah, I mean, we would be in these practicals or these practicums with a bunch of other classmates, and you'd literally get a gold star for the first person that like identified the disease. He's like, that's what it's about. That's what it is. And then it's like, basically like, you follow a list of instructions on what to do. Like, okay, they get this meds at this time and this, and that's medicine right now in a lot of ways. And so it's not, their fault necessarily, but, they'll catch up, but it's just a different world out there. Which is why I like functional medicine, which is another totally different plug. But so what to do? Obviously, this is a huge plug again, which I forgot to do last time, is I'm not a medical professional, or not yet a medical professional in any capacity. So, and even when I am, I will not be allowed to diagnose. I can help you learn to advocate, identify maybe what's going on, and work with your doctor for sure. But always talk to your doctor if you feel like you have a bigger issue. There are all sorts of, tests and panels and things they can run. Anyway, go to your doctor. That's the whole plug. And if you feel like you're being dismissed, that is not how it should work. Don't fucking stand for that. It makes me so angry. I have been dismissed so many times in the nicest of ways, but
dismissed.
It's dismissive, and healthcare shouldn't be like that. You know your body the best. And so if you feel like something's going on, you need to, unfortunately, sometimes take control of it by yourself. What I also suggest generally, and I did this as well, is an elimination diet. And I spoke about an elimination diet a couple of episodes ago with regards to finding allergies, but actually it really just is a great liver cleanser. And if your liver and your digestive system are able to kind of take a break, reset themselves, that will, you'll be able to kind of feel your gut relax a little bit. And you're eating supportive foods that aren't super hard on it. So it's another way also to figure out like how foods are affecting you as you kind of slowly introduce them back in. Yeah, right. So they're really great. A third one that's easy is relax. So I know it's so
easy.
No, it just sounds so taboo. Like, I've been learning this in school, and I sometimes roll my eyes. I'm like, really? But it's really true. It's true. Stress actually, because your body goes into like a fight or flight mentality and a mode. And even if you don't feel like you're in that chronic stress, that you're basically there. So it changes the way you digest. It changes the structure of your gut bacteria. It changes all those things. So really trying to tune into your body and figure out what is making you stressed. Do things that calm you, it relax you, and take that time for yourself. It actually will help quite a bit. So that's an easy kind of thing. No money, just figure out how to fucking relax, basically.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done for sure. And then in terms of foods that are supportive to the gut microbiome, cooked foods are always easier to digest. So,
really?
Like cooked carrots end up being like a little bit starchy, but like cooked broccoli, like cooked kale, like those types of things are just easier for your body to break down.
Cooked carrots are different than raw carrots?
Yes, cooked carrots kind of become more of a starch.
What?
Yeah.
How?
Think about eating a raw carrot versus cooked carrot. It's no longer crunchy.
No,
right?
like I get the consistency is different, but like how is the nutrition
because the heat and the way you cook it starts processes that our body does, which is convert carbs to sugars and proteins to amino acids and all of those things. Cooking can actually kickstart some of those processes. So the structural composition of the food is a little bit different when you cook them. Not to mention, I think it's just generally like our stomach physically digests as well. Like it does a churning motion. So if you're eating a raw carrot versus a cooked carrot, it's going to be different. So it can be just easier on your system. Eating a lot of fiber. So that's how our good bacteria eat, essentially. That's how they kind of thrive and survive. But not the fiber that is fortified or added on. So anything that's like fortified, added, anything that's basically processed mumbo jumbo. So let's not.
Anything that is good and is strong in fiber naturally.
Yes, like a whole food. Like I know this fruit has fiber in it. Great. And broth. So I'm
Bone broth.
actually, yeah, I'm starting to, and mineral broths too. So I'm starting to get into a bone broth. I drink tea all the time, so it's easy for me to sip. But I'm trying to get back into the vibe of doing that. But it has a really high gelatin content, which gelatin sounds really disgusting.
It really does sound disgusting.
But it's not. So gelatin in its natural form is basically like collagen.
Oh.
And
Which is
our
good.
gut, it basically helps the lining of our gut because that's what a lot of the times our cells need to like repair themselves, build up strength. So on the mineral broth side, so if you're, don't do bone broth, on the mineral broth side, which is basically just veggies and things like that, there are a ton of micronutrients that get extracted, but also maintain their integrity when they're boiled. So mineral broth can also be great. You can make these things yourself. I'm happy to share recipes that I've found over the years, but you can also buy at the store. So that's like the easiest.
That's what I will be doing.
Yeah,
I will not be making any broths myself.
I'm on a hunt for, because I eat meat, but I'm very now hyper aware of the conditions that my meat sources are coming from and how they're raised. So we talked about eggs in the past, like pasture raised exclusive, like they need to be grass. Same with like cows, beef, grass fed only. So I'm trying to find brands that, are really good about that.
In line with that.
So far, Bare Bones bone broth is one that I just bought to try, and it's apparently really good. It comes not in my favorite like plastic container thing, but it's not hot, so the plastic is not leaching into my food. But they have it. You can shop it online, or they have it at Whole Foods if Whole Foods is, and probably other health food stores that are not in California that I don't know about. So bone broth, try that. It's really good. Sip it. I think they say like 8 ounces a day, like 8. Just sip it as like a snack, I guess.
Can you just chug it?
Yeah. Do you really not enjoy bone broth?
Like it's the idea of like sipping bone broth, just like.
Oh, it's not like so comforting to you. It's like chicken soup without this stuff.
Is it?
Yeah, try it.
I don't know. I mean, I've had it before. I've never like gotten into like the whole like do it every day thing. It just like doesn't, like you're like sip it like fucking tea and like no.
Well, I mean, you could also, bone broth aside, I know you do collagen peptides, so you can do Vital Farms like or Vital Proteins, collagen peptides and smoothies and stuff too.
That's what I do.
As long as it's, that's the perfect thing to do. Other couple of things that are a little bit surprising, or might be surprising, is coconut oil. So,
it's good for you.
Super supportive of the GI tract. Oh yeah, it's good for you. That's a very controversial topic because people think that it's like such a fat. So it's a medium chain triglyceride. So there's short, medium, and long triglycerides, which are fats. Short are like animal, basically, like anything that comes from an animal, and it's short and it's easy for our body to kind of use and digest.
Okay.
Medium is similarly easy for our body to use and digest, but it's like more like coconut, like tropical oils, like coconut oil falls into that category. I think avocado. I don't want to say that actually because I don't know. Anyways, and then there's long, which tend to be a little bit harder for our body. It's less like usable by the body in some ways. So medium chain, people are like, oh, it's like an oil that's like so easy for the body to like use. But anyways, there's all sorts of things about that I don't believe. Coconut oil, I think, is great for you. And it has a higher smoke point than olive oil. So if you're like roasting or doing something at high heat, it won't denature. So use coconut oil. And that's how I use it. I mean, I'm not like eating it like a fucking spoon. I just roast my vegetables or something.
Oh, smart.
Olive oil, like a 400-degree oven, like it's going to denature and not be as good for you.
Right.
So coconut oil is good. And then this is something I also do that I actually didn't realize. I did a little bit of research. Warm or room temperature water with lemon and as much pulp as you can, because lemons are super high in a fiber called pectin, which is good for your gut bacteria. So who would have thought? So I have warm lemon water in the morning, every morning, with a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, and I'm addicted. I don't know if anyone else can try this for me and tell me if they similarly become addicted, because now I just need something tart like that in the morning or else I feel weird. It's very bizarre. But maybe
I'll investigate that.
Yeah. And I'm not so great now that I've learned about this fiber and the pectin in it. I'm going to try to like do as much of the pulp as I can so I can get some of that. But I mean, warm lemon water, making sure so I've heard that if it's too hot, like it has to be easily drinkable, warm or room temperature. So I like mine warm. I like do it hot and then I let it cool for a little bit. But that's something important. Anyway, so this became a really long answer to this question, but I can post resources. There are a couple of doctors that I really like. So if you guys Google Dr. Will Cole, he has a great article on gut health, and he's really good about doubling down and including all the research that he looks up, and it's all reputable sources. Dr. Jolene Brighton is one that I know I've talked about. I know I've talked about her all the time with regards to specifically to like hormone health. She does, as a part of her hormone resetting, she in her book walks you through like a liver cleanse, which can be really beneficial for the gut as well. So even elimination diets, I think she'd walk you through. And then Dr. Mark Hyman is kind of a darling of the functional medicine world. And so he has a great podcast. He has great books. I would say his online resources are not as strong as like Dr. Cole's, but those are good places to start. And friendly reminder is that I've been on the end of this for friends and family who are like asking me questions and they're like, this is so overwhelming.
Me.
Yeah. What do I fucking do? It's so much information. And I have to remind myself to like, I'm super into, like, I have to know all the things all the time so it doesn't overwhelm me, but it is fucking overwhelming. So take it literally one step at a time. Like if something from this podcast sounds like something you can do, like
do the one
I'm going to have warm lemon water, or I'm going to start doing bone broth. Do that and just make that kind of a part of your routine. Pay attention to how you're feeling and then, see if things change. But of course, if you have any chronic or worries about chronic inflammation or anything related to the GI, always go to the doctor for sure. And then the second question, the last one I will answer for today is, Lo, I want to know about keto diets. What are they?
Oh, goodness.
Should I do them? Tell me more.
I have thoughts.
So I have feelings about diets.
That's not shocking.
I'll try to focus. I hate the word diets so much. And so it's hard for me even in this new career I'm embarking because like you kind of do call it a diet, like when someone shifts the way they eat. So I'm trying to, if anyone has any ideas on what I have to fucking
lifestyle change.
Whatever. But I won't go too deep into my opinions about diets right away. And I'll just fucking focus on answering the question. So
another podcast.
And here's another full circle moment. I've talked a little bit about this when I teased out intermittent fasting. I was talking about glucose and ketones and how the body, what the body uses for energy essentially.
Right.
So the most common form of energy for our bodies is glucose, often coming from the carbohydrates in our food. Carbohydrates including vegetables like broccoli, it's carbohydrate. There's also the storage form of glucose, which if we have excess glucose, we store it in our muscles and our liver. And then eventually we can kind of turn it. It's called glycogen. And we can turn that back into glucose for our body to use. So basically, our body will persist on glucose and glycogen as long as we have it. But there's also ketones, which basically, not to go into too much detail, basically is burning fat. So ketosis is that I'm burning fat instead of burning carbohydrates or burning glucose. Again, why I'm interested in intermittent fasting, I'm leaning towards, especially with the brain, because there are so many glucose receptors on the brain, and the brain actually, I think, I don't want to like misspeak, but it is, if we think about like the food we eat, like the brain uses so much of the energy that we're using in our body.
Right.
Anyway. So keto diets are basically based on this idea that you can train your metabolism to burn ketones instead of carbohydrates.
Right.
Or glucose, for lack of a better word. So you're basically like working your body into this like metabolic flexibility, or so they call it. So like the ability for your body to like go immediately to that food source, which is great. And a lot of people are like, wonderful, I, will lose weight and do all these things. And, if it's true, for instance, that the brain actually does prefer ketones, which some of these doctors are now saying, then it's great for your brain health. I mean, I believe that there are so many benefits to the spirit of a ketogenic diet.
Right.
Like I believe there are benefits, but diet fads are fucking real. Let me tell you, I also was looking up, I was doing a light research for this to make sure I wasn't totally off base. There are like 6 different types of keto diet now. Like people are just kind of like, they're just like making them like a vegan keto and like how to do. And
oh, people are just making shit up now.
Well, they're just, they're trying to adapt this diet. So here's my thing. And I'm going to feel this about all diets. A, they're really a thing. B, everyone's fucking different. And C, good nutrition literally comes down to cutting out sugars and cutting out refined and processed foods.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. So eating foods in their whole form. So like, and honestly, that's why I speak about the spirit of keto diets, is that's what the spirit of this is essentially. What I don't love is about keto is that you can eat, and it depends on who you speak to also. So do your research and kind of find, if you want to try this diet, try to find one that works for you. But, like for instance, like I said, broccoli, like you don't want to cut broccoli. Like that's a carbohydrate. Like that becomes starchy. A carrot, it becomes starchy in your body, but it has all sorts of things that are actually beneficial for you from a micronutrient perspective. So I'm always concerned with diets that restrict what we're eating too much, because we need variety. Like we need micronutrients from our diet. Like you can't just supplement all day. Like that's, you want to have some variety. So, and keto removes fruit entirely.
I fucking hate it.
Which like, obviously you don't want to be like over consuming fruit, but would I rather you have fruit than a sugary sweet? Yeah. Because it has fiber in it. So like, and not only that, but you think about the antioxidants that like blueberries have. There are all sorts of different properties.
Oh, you could have berries for whatever that's worth. I had berries.
Oh, you had berries. Okay, so you could. So
but like, that's it.
Right. So, but that's the thing. So I worry about diets that start making us think too much about foods in really specific categories. Like we think about macronutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrate, right? Like the foods aren't just one of those things. Right. Like it can be a carbohydrate, also an antioxidant, also all these other things. So my whole thing is, if you're considering it, find one that works for you. Pay attention to your body, because your body will tell you if it's right for you or not. But also like just maybe cut processed shit out, maybe cut sugar out. Like that, I think over time is going to that's like the constant in all of these diets that work well.
Right. So that's like the spirit of Whole30 also, right? It's like Whole Foods, like every diet that works, diet in quotations, that works well. Like everyone, you hear don't have sugar and like eat the whole food,
right. Totally.
Whole30. And that's what it comes down to.
Right. And so like for instance, keto often cuts out like legumes, which can be hard for people to digest. A lot of, like beans, things like that get a bad rep because they have what people call anti-nutrients, where unless you soak or sprout or do something to them to like kind of start this process before you eat them, it basically like the anti-nutrient will leach on to like magnesium and calcium and like prevent your body from using those nutrients. So that's why those get a bad rep. But like, again, like if you can like soak your black beans, like you're going to get a lot of magnesium. So like you can eat these things in a way where it makes sense. So again, everyone's different. Everyone's going to want to try something new. I would reflect on the reason why you want the diet first. Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And then kind of back into what actually, the underlying theme of everything, like we've talked about, really is whole foods.
Right.
So that's how I feel. So if you're doing keto and you love it, great. Listen to your body, but nothing has to be permanent, and it's not always for everyone.
It was not for me. And not because it didn't work. Like if your goal was to lose weight, which was mine, and also to mainly just like have like a plan that was like part of the goal. Like I wasn't eating like well. And so it was like, oh, this is a plan. Like it's something that I can follow.
Right.
But it made me so consumed with thinking about my next meal, not in the way that I was like hungry, but like in the way that I was like stressed. I was like, what am I going to eat? What can I eat? Like, what can I do?
Which is not a place to be in. No. And let me tell you also, and that makes me think too, like if you, for instance, were to approach that diet now, after you've already started making changes to your diet, it might be easier for you. So like take things a step at a time. Like that for me, like I kind of went straight up into like I was eating normally, and then I'm like elimination diet, cutting everything out. And that was like fine for me because I was super motivated because of my health diagnosis. But had I not had that health diagnosis, taking it one step at a time, like, let me cut sugar.
Right.
Like, let me try not, or like even just, I'll let myself have my sweet candy once a week. And then I'll do Smart Sweets to hold myself over, some sort of substitute. I just think that starting small is always the best way to go.
For sure.
To make it
then
manageable.
You get used to it and then it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, then it's not a thing. Then you're like looking at these diets and you're like, oh, I already kind of do half these things. So it becomes more about just adding on new habits versus totally
changing your entire
life. Exactly.
Yeah.
So another good, whoever's asked that question, who's listening. So Dr. Hyman on his podcast, The Doctor's Pharmacy, from November 6th of last year, what is the best approach to the ketogenic diet? So that can, is another resource if you want to listen, but that's it.
Yeah. I think that question is such a good question because I feel like, to your point, like fad diets are so real, and like there's always going to be something that comes up that's like, keto, it's not Atkins, but like it sort of is, right? Like, all of these things come up and they cycle in different names and different trends. And like, I remember South Beach was a thing. It was like such a big fad when I was like in high school, and it's all based on the same shit. Like it's
based on the same shit. And people, that's the other thing. It's like, if you're like a marathon runner, like everything, like depending on your exercise level, everyone is so different. And so that's why I struggle with naming things so like different. That. It's like it can be, just finding the underlying principles of all of the diets you're interested in would be an interesting side by side, because you would probably find that
so much
there's an underlying theme.
For sure.
But yeah, so that was fun. So I will next time maybe give it more time on my stories to ask questions. But that said, if people have questions, email always. You can always DM me, Lit with Low. I basically just add them to a list that I keep on my computer, and I'm going to reference them as I go and try to answer as many questions as possible.
Our resident holistic nutritionist.
Voila. Okay. So now we have Enneagram
8. Because I did it right this time.
Wait, am I next?
You're next.
7 is next.
So we are in the Enneagram 8. And I think that, well, first of all, I never mistyped as an 8, but when I first read all the descriptions, I thought I was an 8 without like really diving in. This was like, when I first started. And I think that people who know me peripherally or don't know me super well.
It's like your rising sign.
Yeah, like might think that I'm an 8.
Like, yeah.
Which makes sense because and I think my parents would type me as an 8 because I used to fight with them a lot, when I was a kid. And 8s are like pretty confrontational. So like, and that's where 2s go in stress is 8. So
makes a lot of sense. All right, can't wait to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So Enneagram 8, this is part of the bingos. Been in a fight with a stranger, trust their gut, quote, get out of the way, I've got this. We could do that, or we could do what I want instead. Top-notch bullshit detector, and I give 0 fucks what you think about me. Like, just like an intense person.
So also 8, I think, what did we think? I'm a 7 wing 8.
You might be balanced. Well, when I get to the wings, you can hear
Yeah, but that's why I'm especially excited about 8 too, because I'm leaning towards that. And
Are you?
And the 0 fucks about what you think about me is very much a vibe.
Okay, so the other, I forgot. Don't let me forget this. How 8s travel by plane.
Okay, yeah.
All right, listen, people, here's the deal. Stay the fuck together. I'll go buy the sandwiches. Where the fuck is your passport? God, if you want to get something done, you got to fucking do it yourself. Which, like, if I was in a bad mood and I was traveling, that would be me.
Right. You would be like the mother, like, yeah, if you were in a good space, you'd be like, okay, everyone, let me organize you.
Right.
But yeah, if you were a pissed off mom.
Correct.
With like
that would be me.
6 kids. Yeah.
Yep. So the name for 8s is the Challenger. Other names are the Dragon, the Leader, the Protector, and the Rock.
Hold on. Sorry, we have to cut this out. I let Clarence in and now he's fucking whining.
Oh, I can't even hear him.
What? There you go. Get it. You doo-doo bird. So insane. There you go. Yeah.
You want a toy? Is that what he wanted?
Okay, sorry. So
Did
I
he
think
want a toy?
yeah, he like, but here's the thing. He's such a fucking baby that like there was a box that he could have gone around, but he's terrified of things falling on top of him. So like he doesn't. He's like a baby about it and he'll like whine.
Cool.
Anyway, so
I'm going to
I
start
think
with the
we're good.
names.
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, you don't think you need
I'm
to
just going to start
repeat.
with the names. Yeah. So the Enneagram 8 is the challenger. Other names are the dragon, the leader, the protector, and the rock. Some common characteristics: powerful, dominating, self confident, decisive, willful, but also confrontational. They can be straight talking, egocentric, domineering, and they feel like they must control their environment. Like that's like their big thing is making sure they're in control of whatever is going on around them. They can have problems with their temper, and they also can have problems with allowing themselves to be vulnerable because like that means they're losing control of their environment. But at their strength, at their best, like they are like heroic more or less. Like, if you're at the epitome of 8, like you are just like saving the world. Like those are people
Rad.
you want in your corner. um so the basic fear of 8s is of being controlled or harmed by other people. So their basic desire is to protect themselves and be in control of their own life, which makes the unconscious childhood message: it's not okay to be vulnerable or to trust anybody.
Oh,
I know.
the
uh,
trusting everyone is a sad one.
it's really sad.
Do you
I
know
always
many eights?
I actually don't know many 8s.
I was just gonna
So
say I don't
it's
think I
funny that you say
do.
that. I was talking with my neighbor earlier today because for a long time she was saying she was an 8, and I always thought that that was wrong. And then she like realized, she's like, I think that's wrong too. I think I might be a 7. And then I was reading about 8s today as I was going through um, this spreadsheet. And like there were some things about 8s that like resonated with her that I was like, maybe she is. So I don't know that many. Like Ben's boss is an 8, which makes sense. He runs a company.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I don't know, probably 2 or 3 other ones.
Oh, interesting.
But I imagine it is a common type and just like maybe not in the circle that I run in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like a rare type for sure. Um, so their key motivations are to be self-reliant, to resist weakness, to be important in their world, and stay in control of their situation. Like the theme is like they need to run shit,
Yeah.
their life, everyone else's life.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Um, Right. So, just like a general overview of 8s, much of their behavior, just like in general, is involved with retaining and increasing their power for as long as possible, basically. Being in charge and leaving their imprint on the world is like uniquely characteristic of 8s, making sure there's like a legacy left behind. They stand alone more than any other type. Like they are the most independent of types. They don't let the opinions of other people sway them. They're not like worried about social conventions. None of that matters to them.
Yeah.
They're extraordinarily tough and can absorb a great deal of physical punishment without complaint, but are desperately afraid of being hurt emotionally. So like that's the whole vulnerability thing. Like they are just, it's not their jam. They also have the physical and psychological capacities to persuade others to follow them. So that to me, when I read that and when I kind of combine everything else, like I imagine a lot of cult leaders were 8s.
Probably.
That's just like that's how I read that. I want to like
Yeah.
look into like Jonestown and kind of or
Yeah.
like Marilyn Manson and see, but like that
Totally.
just makes sense to me.
Totally.
Um, so like 9 and 1, 8s are in the gut triad. This is the last gut triad type. So they're concerned with resistance and control of their environment, and they want autonomy. And how we said that 9s project their need for control inward and outward, and 1's directed inward. 8s is fully outward. They are like, I need control, and you're going to know I need
Yeah.
control, and I'm going to take control. That's everything is out with an 8.
I wonder
They are
how are eights in relationships? Ooh.
Yeah, they're a lot. It is, and I always think it's interesting. I think I talk about this when they're, you know, in the stress part, but I think 8s and 2s are a good combination because
I was just gonna say,
they
yeah.
are reciprocal in some way. Like I can talk about this now. The way it's phrased is like good cop, bad cop, because 8s go to 2 in health and 2s go to 8 in stress. And so like when
Got
they're
it.
both at their worst, they have a lot of the same qualities. And when they're both at their best, they have a lot of the same qualities. So it makes fighting really ugly, obviously.
Yeah.
But they share like the same goal and like same vision
Well, and I
ultimately.
imagine the 2 has that nurturing quality that enables an 8 maybe to be more vulnerable and be comfortable with doing that. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. So I think 8 and 2 is like an exceptionally good pairing, which is
Got it.
interesting because Ben's boss, who's an 8, his wife is a 2.
Mm.
So yeah, I found that interesting. Um, they are in the social style group that they are in is assertive, of course, which is moving against people, ego oriented and expansive, and they respond to stress by building up or inflating their ego. Which like that obviously makes sense. Their coping style is reactive, which is the last group. I don't think we've had any reactive. 4, 6, and 8 are reactive. They react emotionally to conflicts and problems and have difficulty knowing how much to trust other people. When a problem arises, they look for an emotional response from others that mirrors theirs. So, like, when they're upset about something, you fucking better be upset about it too. Like, if you see something and you're like, that's not right, or like, fuck this person, you better have the same reaction. Like, that is I'm making them sound like complete
Like
assholes.
a
When,
loyalty thing. It's like a,
what it is, it's an absolutely a loyalty thing.
right.
Absolutely.
Like be on my team. So
Yes.
funny because Alex has some of that where he's like, he gets so upset at me. And I don't know if this is, because the 8s and 3s in some ways sound like they're maybe
A little bit of,
a little similar, but Alex has that if I'm not like as passionate or like as mad or like he gets about things he cares about, he like takes it personally. I'm like,
you can't see the face Lo made. It was great.
yeah, sorry. My like what thing? Like what? Excuse me. Anyway, sorry to
Okay, so the
digress.
wings, the 8 wing 7 is called the Maverick, or the Independent or the Party. Those are like different names, but the Maverick is the main name. A couple of quotes from Millenniagram: larger than fucking life and strategically extra. When push comes to shove, 8 wing 7s are going to shove. was the quote, which I thought was good. But like, I feel like that it really like encompasses like a
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
They're charismatic, able to attract others and to support and join in their vision. They're action oriented. This is the type that like really wants to leave their impact on the world. Good at challenging others, often entrepreneurial, risk takers, not overly concerned with pleasing others. Examples: FDR,
Mm.
Barbara Walters, Courtney Love, and Trump. Trump is an 8, which like really makes sense to me
A very
when you,
unhealthy, right? Like a
right,
narcissism
very unhealthy 8.
1000. Yeah.
And like also, I mean, the cultish aspect, like he's extremely charismatic. That's how he gets, you know, he's not, obviously we think he's stupid, but like the reason he's able to do what he does is because he's incredibly charismatic.
Yeah, he can
Like
get
there's
people
no
to follow
way,
his lead in the most remarkable way that it's just like your point, a cult leader. Like I don't understand like how people
right?
him
But
and
like
think
that's why,
shit.
like there's no scenario that Mike Pence would have drummed up the same reaction to the Republican Party. Like there's just no way.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So if you're an 8 wing 7, don't be alarmed. Like obviously all of the 8, it like sounds really like aggressive. Like, I mean, it is. 8s are aggressive, but like the few 8s I know are amazing people and you want an 8 in your corner. Like,
Yeah, no, and I feel like when you talk about these things, it's also like the baseline 8,
of
right? And there's
course.
a healthy and unhealthy. So if like you're thinking, oh God, I'm the same as Trump, like he's like an unhealthy, like they're
Like the
different.
unhealthiest of unhealthy.
Yeah,
Correct.
like narcissism.
And also, right, like to like FDR was also an 8 wing 7. So like it
Yeah.
obviously varies greatly. 8 wing 9 is the bear or the wallflower. They combine strength and self-confidence with quiet groundedness. They are steady in their pursuits than other 8s. They're warmer, more family oriented, and want to be independent like 8s, but like more at like a slower speed, like at their own pace. They are more of like a dual nature where they manifest themselves differently in their work and their personal life. So like you could be like, you know, a boss ass bitch in your work life and then
Yeah.
come home and be like way more chill
Yeah.
as opposed to like an 8-wing 7 who will just be like that all the time.
Got it. That's
Um,
interesting.
they live quietly and unobtrusively, but they can still be stubborn, impassive, and quietly menacing. Two examples of 8-wing 9s are MLK and Toni Morrison.
Oh, that's a good company to be in.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because sometimes when you have a type, the wings make the type vary so drastically,
Yep.
and sometimes they don't at all. So with 2s, we're all fucking the same. Like a 2-wing 1 is so
Yep.
close to a 2-wing 3. Like there's like such little difference in my opinion compared to an 8 where like an 8-wing 7 is going to look drastically different than an 8-wing 9.
Yeah, that's interesting. Does that happen elsewhere too, you think?
Um
I
I'd
guess
have
we'll
to
find
think
out.
about
Yeah.
it. Like, I do think, like, as I'm like thinking in my head, yeah, I imagine that like most of them are pretty different. Like 2, I think is definitely the most similar.
Yeah.
Like it has their wings are the most similar
Yeah.
for sure.
Interesting.
But yeah, it is very interesting. 8 is like drastically different. Whereas like 7s are probably like they're different, but like it's not you're not a totally different
Got it.
person.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the instinctual variants, these are also all very different. Self preservation is known as the survivor. They are reserved, focused, the most domestic of the 3 subtypes. They handle shit and get shit done. Like they are just like down to business. They are more prone to workaholism and materialism and can sometimes be mistyped as a 1 or a 5 just because they're like focused, getting shit done.
Got it.
5s are like no bullshit, and quiet and kind of just like let's move.
Yeah.
However, they can become bullies or act selfishly to maintain their security. Because self-preservation in all of the types is like about security.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's about just, like having their security in whatever is going on in their life and mainly their home.
Yeah.
So social 8s are referred to as gusto and camaraderie. So they express intensity through their powerful bonds with other people. And they kind of like, to your point about loyalty, like they'll test their friendships to like, feel if they're safe. It's like, oh, are you going to back me? If I react this way, are you going to react this way too? Are we like in it together? Like, let's go. They enjoy debates. The more heated, the better. Social 8s have the most direct connection with 2s, which makes sense because like, you have the 2s who are trying to take care. So if you're a healthy social 8, you're also trying to take care of your people because your main focus is people.
Right.
They are the type of 8s that hold grudges the longest, which makes sense if you're interacting with people that often. At their worst, they can become extremely antisocial and are prone to substance abuse, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting.
And one-on-one or sexual 8s are referred to as taking charge. They are the most rebellious of the 3 subtypes. And in my opinion, they're actually probably the most like rebellious rebel type of all enneagram. Like sexual 8s are like known, like if you're thinking of like a stereotypical bad girl in like a movie or a book, that is a sexual 8, probably a sexual 8-wing 7. Like they are just like they like kind of revel in that label.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
They are loud, expressive, and according to the millenniagram, they did not fucking come to play. They have 1 or 2 relationships in their life that they focus on, not like it could be one could be a romantic and one could be a friendship, both could be friendship, whatever it is, but they like really hone in on those relationships and they go to them for everything.
Right.
At the unhealthier level, though, as it probably makes sense, they can be extremely jealous because they have these 1 or 2 people. And if these 1 or 2 people aren't using them in the same way and like, have other friends or go to other people for other things, it can get ugly.
So they're possessive.
They're possessive. Yeah. This type, which I thought this was really funny, which is true. They are very unlikely to be mistyped. Like you're just not going to like, if you're an 8-wing 7 or an 8-wing 9 that is sexual, like you're just not going to be mistyped.
Right.
Like that's
it's
like
clear.
who you are.
It's obvious. Yeah.
So to your point, I do have in this spreadsheet the levels of development where it's like healthy, average, and unhealthy. And just for everyone to like ease their mind if you're an 8, I normally don't read these, but an example of like the middle of the range healthy is self-reliant and strong. So like you're not sounding like a psychopath. Like that is where that's great. An average in the middle is self-glorifying and dominating, which like makes sense. Like I think more people when they're at their unhealthiest are in the average category, because unhealthy is like you are a fucked up human being.
Right.
Like you are not doing great. So the last or the middle tier of unhealthy is megalomaniacal. So it's like a megalomaniac, but like and
Whoa.
terrorizing.
Oh,
So like that's where we are with Trump. Like
that's scary.
ruthless.
That's middle of the range, unhealthy.
Oh yeah, the last one is sociopathic and destructive, which
Oh,
like he
okay.
could be that too.
Yeah.
Like right. So the difference between self-reliant and strong and sociopathic and destructive is massive. So like don't
big. Right.
so don't think that if you're an 8 and like you're an A-wing 7 like Trump, like it's okay.
No, and
I
you got
promise
FDR
you.
in your corner, you good.
Right. And when I tell you the other 8s, well, there's a couple weird ones, but it's okay. You don't have your most famous person as Arsenio Hall. So I still can't get over that. I just
Pretty
can't.
funny, actually.
So in stress, self-confident 8s suddenly become secret and fearful at 5. They like go inward and like just kind of are inside their own feelings, inside their own head. Stress builds and super confident 8s are unable to move, and because they've bitten off more than they can chew. They spend some time brooding and want privacy to kind of sit with their thoughts. And they can also be pretty high strung, which makes sense, obviously. But in health, controlling 8s become more open-hearted and caring, like healthy 2s. And like I mentioned earlier, like 8s and 2s have this like sort of good cop, bad cop routine. They're very connected. And at their best and worst, like kind of resemble each other.
Right.
An 8 in health, this is from Millenniagram. An 8 in health is the motherfucker you want on your team. Like, which is true. Like you want an 8 in your corner fighting for you because they are all about loyalty.
So
and
loyal, yeah.
Right. And what I thought was really interesting is that children and pets bring out the best in 8s because they like, they want to care and fight for somebody and like, be in their corner. And so if you're a healthy 8, like children bring out the best in that, which I thought was so
that's
interesting.
cute. But then is it also scary? Are they like so helicopter parent?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Is that the best in them? That would be my question.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like middle of the road, right?
Yeah,
like it's average if you're a helicopter parent.
I'm
But
like,
I bet 2s are helicopter parents also.
Probably, yeah. I just like an 8 when you describe like someone like control of their environment. Like a kid, you don't have control of your like.
Oh yeah, no, 8s are probably
maybe it brings out better qualities in them. Maybe that's kind of what that means too.
Right.
It, like
well,
humbles
yeah,
them to like realize, they're like, okay,
right.
I can't control literally everything.
So some other examples of 8s in history that weren't labeled with a wing: Winston Churchill, LBJ, John McCain, Ernest Hemingway, Picasso, Serena Williams, Aretha Franklin, Queen Latifah, Russell Crowe, Matt Damon, Alec Baldwin, and Saddam Hussein.
Just ending with them. You're like, everyone, don't worry if you're an 8, and Trump and Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, it's yeah.
There's some variety. You're right, though. There is like the spectrum there seems really.
Literally, you have Trump and MLK.
Yeah, that's a really big
type.
Yeah.
Right.
Wild.
So like obviously Trump is, he's the 8-wing 7 and MLK is the 8-wing 9, and they're very, very different. But also even within those, the health level and the unhealth level is like, it's wild. Whereas like obviously if you were to read and go back and like look at, 2s at their healthiest and 2s at their unhealthiest, it's also a very drastic difference.
Right.
But like the fact that the wings matter so much and the subtypes matter so much for 8s make a big difference. I mean, John McCain also.
Yeah.
Like it's it's very interesting. I really want to go back and look at some of like these cults and see if like people have typed these cult leaders, because I gotta think that they're an unhealthy 8. It just like makes sense to me.
Well, like the way you describe them, like
so that's 8s.
Yeah.
So they're intense, but we love them. That's how I describe 8s. Like they're intense, but we love them, and you want an 8 in your corner.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely do.
Totally. There's really good qualities in there.
Yeah, for sure.
No one should give a fuck what anyone thinks about them.
Do you understand that? Like, well, I guess like for you, like you knew me so well in the beginning that it's like probably harder, but I feel like anyone that's listening to me that like knows me from like high school maybe or whatever, would like have mistyped me as an 8 because I'm
No,
like,
you get fired up for sure. Like when you're like mad, I'm like, ooh, okay. When Jamie says she's screaming at her husband, she is screaming at her husband. And I just know that.
correct.
So, yeah, no, it does not shock me because, yeah, I feel like well, because a lot of what you read about the eights was like, when you believe in something, you stand up for it and you expect like
Everyone else to follow suit.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like that quality is definitely something you have. And that can be like the best quality as well.
Yep. So
whatever. Fun. All right. We'll post
it.
this.
Before we get into what are you watching and reading, let me tell you what I fucking watched yesterday.
Oh, just yesterday.
I guess this actually segues right into watching and reading.
Right. Okay.
Want to know what I watched yesterday? I watched a 14-minute interview with Chris Harrison and Rachel Lindsay that made me want to crawl under a table. I wanted to fucking die. So if you haven't seen, and I'm sure by the time this comes out, like, I mean, it's going to be fucking everywhere. It's already everywhere. But Rachel Lindsay, who was the first Black lead in Bachelor Nation, she was the first Black Bachelorette, interviewed Chris Harrison, who's the host. I'm saying this in case like the 1% of the people that are listening that don't watch The Bachelor, interviewed Chris Harrison on Extra TV. So this is on national television. And was talking about how one of the girls that's in the current season, Matt James, who's the first Black Bachelor, this girl is white. Her name is Rachel, and her last name is Kirkconnell. This is a whole nother podcast, but that's how you pronounce her last name.
We looked it up on Google pronunciation, and I went to 3 different links, and it says Kirkconnell. So
yeah, that's where we're going.
Jamie, full stop. Jamie was hating on the way it was pronounced. And I, of course, being the person I am, devil's advocate, was like, but do we know it's Kirkconnell? Like, maybe we're wrong. And so then I had to Google it, and she was correct.
But you know what's interesting is I watched a video on IGTV.
Yeah, they yesterday. Also pronounced it Kirkconnell or whatever.
Yeah, pass. Nope, it's Kirkconnell. Anyway.
I hope you scream DMs them. It is not how you pronounce it.
I hope someone tells me that it's Kirkconnell and like sends me a link to like her pronouncing it on her own. Anyway, so this girl, Rachel, and like she's clearly a front runner. And I mean, like we know from the show she's a front runner, but like the way Chris was talking about her makes her sound like she's the person that wins because like why else?
Oh, interesting.
Like just like the way, well, he says, so
like you don't know her. Yeah. Tell me all the things. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. So it's confusing because there's Rachel Lindsay, who is the interviewer, and then Rachel Kirkconnell is the contestant right now. And it's clear from the show that like she's the front runner. Matt has said he's in love with her and has said that to nobody else, like blah, blah, blah. So as soon as the show came out, obviously the internet does what it does and it like goes into this deep dive of every contestant, especially the front runners. And like it comes out that she's from like very small town Georgia, like she's from a sundown town. Which if you don't know what that means, it means it's a town where when the sun goes down, Black people are not safe. Like, yeah.
That it still exists?
Well, duh. Like, I don't know if it's still
duh, that still exists, Laurel. But like you still call it a sundown. Wow.
Yeah. And like pulled like her parents' voting records and donation records. She had like a bunch of pictures on her Instagram that are now like either archived or deleted with like posing with cops and like pictures that had the Confederate flag or like the Trump flag in the background.
Where'd she go to college?
I don't know the
Somewhere
answer
in the South, though?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are all down. And then there was a bunch of people had like written in or like, you know, told gossip sites or whatever that they went to high school with her and she used to make fun of people that dated Black men for dating Black men, which is fucking wild on a whole nother level. Yep. And then the most recent thing is that there was a picture that was found of her from 2018 where she was participating in an old, like for a sorority and fraternity formal. It was like an Old South themed formal, which they were in antebellum dresses and the men were in Confederate soldier like wear. And it was on a plantation and it was like a whole fucking thing.
That is dark.
It is dark. And
the Confederate uniforms.
Yeah. Well, and this fraternity is like apparently, and I didn't really know the history of it.
I didn't know any of this.
It's Kappa Alpha, and it's apparently an extremely racist fraternity. Like they say that their spiritual leader is Robert E. Lee.
Cool.
Cool.
Sweet.
And they, you know,
where's
they had
Robert E. Lee on the enneagram?
nowhere fucking good. That's the answer to that. So apparently in 2016, the national like organization of Kappa Alpha said that they needed to stop doing these Old South parties. In 2016, they said, we're done with the Old South parties. Like, don't do them anymore.
Could
And
have
so
happened a little sooner than 2016.
well, correct. But in 2018 is when she attended this party.
Oh.
It was like not sanctioned. It was off campus. It was like, so they were doing it after even the most racist organization said we're done.
Whoa.
So it's like, okay. So back to the interview. Rachel Lindsay, who like she is a goddess among humans. Like I just love her. I think the way she handles herself and the way that she deals with
So
people.
poised. Yeah.
So poised. I could never. That's just like really what it comes down to. Was asking Chris like kind of, questions about like, why hasn't she spoken? There's nothing in her contract that prevents her from defending herself.
Right. Because all this stuff started coming out like a few weeks ago, right?
Right. Well, like really some of it started coming out like when The Bachelor started in January. And so basically Rachel's point was like, it's been going on for 6 weeks and she hasn't said jack shit.
Has Matt commented or no?
Very vaguely. And he said like you just, rumors spread and like, you don't know like everything like Bob, like it was like nothing
interesting.
It was nothing serious. But Chris basically got on like his high horse and was very defensive and was like, we aren't looking in 2018. We weren't looking through the same racism lens that we are in 2021. Oof. Like he acted basically like racism didn't exist in 2018 or like we weren't expected to know what racism was in 2018 because everyone got woke in 2020 is essentially what he was implying.
Right.
And he kept referring to the woke police.
Oh God.
Like saying like, oh yeah, like I don't, she didn't know like the woke police were going to attack her. Like she wasn't prepared for the woke police. Okay. Just stop. Just fucking stop. And he kept saying, like we need to give her grace. We need to give her forgiveness and kindness. And we need to like let her explain. And Rachel's like, fine. I'm fine with letting her explain. But she fucking hasn't. She hasn't said shit.
Right. It's been weeks. Like she could have said something by now. Yep.
And I mean, like more or less, he was like gaslighting Rachel Lindsay. Like it was just
a white man.
Correct. Basically saying he was like, I just love that we can have conversations about this. Like, basically saying like you and I can really discuss these things, but I can't with everybody because people like, attack you and da da da. And it was just like, she is being the nicest human being she can possibly be right now. Like,
right. Like everything you're saying warrants an attack, to be honest.
Correct. But yeah, he basically was just like, forgive her. We should give her grace. We should let her speak. And Rachel was like, yeah, we should let her speak. Fucking speak. Nothing is preventing her from coming out and saying like, none of this is true, or like, it's true and I grew from it, or like this part's true and this part's not true. Like she hasn't said anything.
Just be a human being. Like so when this got brought up amongst our group of friends, I like had zero, like I watch The Bachelor, but do not like I don't know what's going on. Half the time, people know who already wins and like catch up on. I had no idea. So I had the same stance as Chris because I was like, oh, is this just coming? Like in my perspective, I was like, oh, it's just coming out. Like let's wait to see what she says. Like we can't. Like I don't believe people can grow and we can't continue to like have conversations if everyone's just like, like we need to be able to have conversations and grow from these things. But I had none of the context that it had been fucking weeks. And that also was like all of like, I didn't know anything about like making fun of what white people for dating black people. Like what?
Right.
Like none of that. I didn't know any of that. So
well, and like to be fair, wild. Like I'm still waiting to hear from her, obviously, but like people are vicious. Like, who knows? Someone could have made that up. Who the fuck knows?
Right.
But like,
it is. I know it is sad because people probably also want their time in the spotlight, right? Like they're like, oh, I'm the one that, who knows?
But like, that's why she needs to say something.
She needs to, there's no excuse. Well, now you know that it's all fucking real because she hasn't said something.
Right. And that's the whole thing.
That's the validation everyone needs. Like, okay,
right. Because if you're saying, if someone says something to you, something about you that isn't true, and you're in the national spotlight, and if your contract doesn't prevent you from speaking out, you're gonna speak out and be like, this is completely.
I just wonder how long. I wonder if by the time this podcast airs, she'll have said something because the heat's on. Like now that Chris Harrison was also asked about it, and now Chris is kind of in the spotlight amongst all of this, I feel like, and he like immediately issued his apology, which thank God he issued an apology. He's still fucking a white man that like what are you saying? Like, why did your PR people not fucking prepare you better? Like, that's my question.
Well, and also
because I'm like, as a white man, like it sounds like he was fucking scrambling, and what he was trying to, like, even if he was trying to have good intentions with what he was saying, like, it just was not a pretty moment.
Well, and the other thing is it was clear that he did not write that apology. Like, it was just like,
it's true.
It was very clear. In any event, that's what's going on. That's what I fucking watched. Otherwise, I'm not watching anything else new.
It's dark.
Did you figure out how to watch Lupin with subtitles?
No, because Alex and I realized we fucking finished the season, so it makes no difference.
Oh, that's sad.
No, but we did.
When I talked to Ben about it later, I was like, there's definitely subtitles. And he was like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck they were watching.
I don't know how we got the one we did. What we did watch, not that you're asking me, but now that we're talking about this,
asking you.
If anyone needs like a kind of a feel good show, which Alex and I desperately needed, and if you love sports shows, which sounds weird, but like kind of like, you know, like I'm Remember the Titans, like feel good. Not Remember the Titans, not like a Friday Night Lights, you know, like feel good.
Love Friday Night Lights.
Ted Lasso on Apple. Yeah.
Ted Lasso was
so
great.
And fun. Like, it made me feel so many things.
Like, well, Ben is a diehard like soccer fan, like a Premier League soccer fan, and so like he thought like as soon as it came out, he watched the whole thing. But it's definitely feel good.
Yeah, it was feel good. I liked like some of the kids. I mean, it's like predictable in a lot of ways, but
right.
I think we've talked about like the comfort of that. Yeah. And it's sometimes the jokes, like Alex was like dying laughing, and I was like, this is such boy humor. I'm like, what? Like, but then I would like, you know, I don't know, but it was a feel good show. We really liked it, and we finished.
Oh, I lied. I'm also watching, and by watching, I mean like we're still watching The Crown. Like, we're slogging through it because I would watch it on my own, but it's now the show that we're watching together. And now Ben is like, it's like a thing. So we have two shows that, like, in case he doesn't want to watch an episode of The Crown, we have something else to watch. So now we're watching The Great British Baking Show.
Oh, so fun. Is there a new season?
No, like I've never seen it. So,
shut up. It's so fun to watch. It's just like so soothing.
So calming. Have you
and just so pure. They're just the nicest.
So well, Ben and I watched, have you heard of Making It?
I have heard of that.
So it's Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman from
okay.
Parks and Rec, obviously.
Yeah.
They're the hosts, and it's like the exact same thing as the Great British Baking Show, except it's arts and crafts.
Oh.
It's the exact same vibe. Like, the hosts are like cute and quirky and fun, and like they have like the small project and the big project, and like it's a theme every week, and one person goes home every week, and it's like it's precious. It's such feel good. But yeah, it's exactly the same thing. But arts and crafts, which is like makes it a totally different show.
So fun.
So there's been 2 seasons, and it was like renewed for a third, but COVID happened, so like they haven't done it.
It's been hard, yeah.
But if you haven't seen it, I think it's NBC. So like go investigate if you want 2 seasons of feel good arts and crafts.
I know Alex and I need another show now, but I don't know that I'm in the mood for like a competition show. Maybe.
It's cute.
We love like Top Chef, but I don't think that's back yet.
No, I don't think so either. Are you reading anything fun?
I'm reading When No One Is Watching.
Finish that book.
I finished the crazy book. Yep.
Mm-hmm. You still think it was crazy, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I just like still don't really know what the fuck's going on. So I'm hoping someone reads my review and also reads it.
Explain it to you.
Yeah, and then like we can talk about it a little bit, even though I'll probably black out and like forget what it was about. But like also what was it about even after I read, you know, like one of those moments.
It sounds like a very not me book.
So because I'd read a couple of Booker nominee books in a row, I picked up When No One Is Watching, which someone had sent to me. It's like it's described as a thriller kind of about like gentrification. Have you read it? You've read it? Yeah. I'm like okay about it. I'm like
I gave it 4 stars, I think.
I'm not thrilled about reading it. I'm not like that excited, but it's light enough to where I can like read some other like my health books and stuff. So I'm like, yeah.
The end is so fucking weird. Like I understand like what happened, but like it becomes like you'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It was fine. But yeah, you'll see. I started. Oh, first of all, I think we might have mentioned this on the last episode. I don't remember. How like all of Bookstagram reads this particular fantasy series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So the whole thing was like, I thought book 1 was like incredibly mediocre. And then I was like, do I read book 2? And it was like split basically. Some people were like, if you don't like fantasy, don't, or you gotta, book 2 is the best.
Right.
And I landed in, if I don't like book 2, I won't read the rest of the series. I'm going to read book 2. So I did. And it took me, I shit you not, this book is like 650 pages, which is not my thing. It took me 30 chapters to give a fuck about what was going on. And mind you, I didn't care the whole first book either. So it took me the whole first book.
A book and a half. Yeah, basically.
Book and a half to care. But once I cared, I was like interested. I was like, oh, like I like what's happening. I like now understand things. I had to text one of our friends and be like, who the fuck are these people? There's so many characters.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's happening. But once I like got it and understood and like things were happening, I was like, oh, I like want to know what happens. I like this. I liked the ending of the second book.
Okay.
So I am going to read the third book, mainly just like
to see if it sustains its aura,
so
intrigue.
Right. I mean, I'm in no rush to read it. I didn't immediately pick up the third book. But I posted on Instagram. I didn't post my review. I was like, tell me what you think I'm going to think about it. Am I going to read the third book? And Kate, one of our friends, posted, like, you thought it was fine, but you're going to read the third book because your FOMO is out of control, which is like really what it is.
Right. Because I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, what motive, like someone told Jamie that getting through the first book like wasn't enough. So like I get why she's starting the second, but in what universe did you make it halfway through a 650 page book and continue? Like, how did you even get past page 15? Like if you weren't into it.
Right. And that's really what it is. Like, I just like,
you have to know now. You're like,
you have to know.
Yeah.
The FOMO is just unbelievable. I don't even know why I care. Like, I don't. It's such I don't know. It's so fucking weird that I give a shit about it at all.
It is weird. It's very weird.
It's very weird. But like, I'm just going to do it now. Now I'm just going to do it. I'm not in, like I said, I'm not in any rush.
How many books are there?
So there's the 3 main ones. The third one is the longest. So I'm just like, then there's like a novella, like right after the third one. That's like very small. They're considering it book 4, but it's like really like 3.5. It's like small. And then whatever you want to call it, either book 4 or book 5 comes out like next week. So,
oh wow. Okay. So it's like an active series, like shit's happening.
Oh yeah, it's active. And anyway, so apparently she writes this, this other series that's very long and a huge commitment, which I will not be doing. But she started a third one, which I'm sure you've seen. You might not have seen actually. It's called Crescent City. It has like a red cover with a giant moon on it.
Yeah.
Kind of fantasy looking.
Okay.
And there's only one book so far. And most people that I've talked to that read this ACOTAR series said that they think I will like the Crescent City series better.
Oh, okay.
So it's still on my shelf.
How can one human being write so much fantasy?
I don't know.
That's wild. That's like an imagination. Like that's like, whoa.
Right. And like, how do you keep those worlds straight? Because they're not all in the same world.
She's got one at a time.
Yeah. It's impressive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I finished that. We'll be diving into book 3 at some point. But it took me 4 months to pick up book 2 after book 1. So like, I'm not in any rush. But I started our book club book for our podcast book for next time, Detransition Baby, and I really like it.
I'm really excited. Mine hasn't come yet.
I'm 50 pages in.
Roxanne Gay, also I didn't know, chose it for her book club.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I subscribed to her little Substack newsletter, and I had no idea because the first couple of months I couldn't join, but I'm interested in her book picks. And then Jamie was like, "Let's read this." I was like, "Yeah, it's on my list," not even realizing.
I didn't know either.
But there's a hopefully we can join the Zoom talk with the author.
I'm pumped.
But I think it's the same day we release that. Anyway, so we'll have read the book, or it's the same. Anyway, so by the time we probably won't be able to talk about the interview on the podcast, but I'm psyched about it.
I'm very excited. Yeah. I have a library book version of it. And it's due tomorrow. So I will just be returning it late, but I'm very intrigued so far.
Great.
I read 50
I'm really
pages
excited about it.
It seems it's very clearly unlike any story I've ever read.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Which I don't know what that says about me, but
well, hey, It's
Still,
probably going to be my
you
truth
got to
too.
start somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited that we picked this as our book, and like in the vein of JLo reads, like, I mean, I've seen it on Bookstream because it's got a pretty cover and that's what people do. But
that's true. I haven't even actually seen it very much, but I'm not shocked that it's somewhere, that it's floating around.
But it's gonna be a good one. I'm excited to discuss it.
Yeah, I'm excited to pick it up. It'll probably be the next one I pick up.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
always think we're gonna make these episodes shorter, and then I look and we've recorded for 2 hours. So like, I don't know what to tell you.
Same.
I don't know what to tell you. But I'm excited to talk about Detransition Baby next week. If you haven't picked it up, pick it up. So and I say next week, I mean in 2 weeks.
I'm super stoked for that. And
yeah, it'll be good.
send us or me
emails, please.
Yes, emails.
Okay, guys. Until next time.
Try saying that out loud. Bye.
Bye.